Sabrina 70s comic, issue 73. We start out with Sabrina floating some stuff around, like her toast, and making herself a glass of milk, wasting her time thinking about the problems she has as a witch. She thinks the new boy Roger is cute, and can relate to him about being lonely. He points out that they both got off the bus at the same place. Sabrina wishes she could invite him in for a soda, but she knows what her aunts are like, so she decides against it. Then why doesn't this apply to Harvey? Hilda says over a cauldron, "Zelda, I keep telling you it needs more bat wings," proving Sabrina's point about the nuttiness they're up to, and she wishes they'd act like normal people and runs upstairs sobbing. Hilda asks her what's wrong in her room when she already told her. Good thing she cared enough to go here and ask for clarification. Sabrina says out of complete nowhere that she can never bring anyone home, except Harvey, and Betty and Veronica and Archie and Jughead and all the girls at that slumber party. What caused her to learn her lesson that bringing people home causes trouble? Zelda tells her to bring her friend over tomorrow, and Hilda promises they'll dress and act like normal people. That's very sweet of her to promise. How well is that gonna go? It'd be boring if it went perfectly, I guess. But it'd also be a twist. It goes perfectly in the 90s and 2000s comics. Sabrina feels guilty for being critical of them, and says they always tried so hard to raise her like the parents she never had. So this Sabrina never had parents at all. Roger agrees to stop by her house for hot chocolate, as I'm still noticing that she's with someone who's not her boyfriend and she's a hypocrite. Well, whatever, he's better than Harvey. It's still a bit strange that she lives with her aunts instead of her parents, as hard as they're trying to look normal. Also, Zelda still has green hair. It's a miracle nobody points it out. He's polite, and immediately says he's got to be running and apologizes when he just got here. Sabrina wonders if he thinks she's weird because she doesn't have any parents when nobody ever pointed it out and made fun of it before. Maybe he's just really not a social person and naturally didn't know what else to say to her. He tells her to forget it because it wouldn't work out, so apparently he was smart enough to get that she wanted to date him, and all of a sudden it turns out he's living with a grandma who's a witch. The story ends with Sabrina happily telling him to sit down and see the humor in the situation. Too bad the story just ends there. I like that he's a witch who's not evil and really obvious about it. But I bet he'll be a wasted character who will never show up again after this. Even though he's more likable than Harvey, and he could contrast her by being serious. But Harvey has a lot of things to his character. He likes sci-fi movies and books. He likes fishing. He tried out skiing. This character is really boring in comparison. He's never had slapstick and been clumsy. In the comedy page, Sabrina walks past a bunch of shops selling desserts with her eyes closed and eats popcorn at the movies with a soda, alone because I guess Harvey was busy. Even when she's eating popcorn, she still looks like her eyes are closed. In the next story, it seems to lampshade the fact that Hilda's not that in charge of Sabrina and is a lenient parent. As Sabrina's dressed like a housewife here with a bow behind her and asks her aunt, "Would you be a dear and get me a few things from the corner?" Hilda, who's busy reading a love story and is apparently feeling confident enough not to hide it, asks her why she doesn't just zap up what she needs, which is smart. Sabrina whines that she wants to make cake and cookies without any magic help, and gives her the list of ingredients, and asks her to hurry because they're having company tonight. Isn't it so much more interesting that Sabrina, the daughter figure, is the one in this position? Hilda agrees, and Sabrina says that she should be proud that her teenage not daughter wants to bake for her friends. Since Hilda's smiling, I guess she really is proud. After Sabrina says Hilda's lazy and that the market's right down the block, she finds out Hilda's still here and Hilda shushes her. Hilda's told she needs the items right now, and she only wants to leave after a soap opera's over. So they finally reference again the fact that she watches soap operas. I guess she just started watching it because she was reading earlier. After she's infatuated with the way a mortal looks, Sabrina fortunately explains that the reason she doesn't go herself is that she has flour and baking grease all over her. She does? The artist didn't show that. She could just zap it away. I guess she doesn't want to do that either. She realizes that because Hilda's still here, she has to be more persuasive, and makes the doorbell ring, and tells Hilda to answer it because her hands are full. Hilda humors her, and then she's infatuated when a guy says he's a bachelor who needs to be told where the nearest supermarket is and thinks she's pretty. She floats in front of him, as I assume he was just conjured up, and he's incredibly nice to her and gets her to go to the supermarket. He wishes he could repay her for being so helpful, and she brings him home, And he says his name is Magic and vanishes. So is that the name that all conjured up sentient beings go by? Well, I don't know if they're sentient. They always do what the witch wants. Hilda fortunately doesn't punish Sabrina for this, and instead just says she was sneaky. Well, mad at her because she tricked her into doing work and disappointed her. Sabrina points out rightfully that she did tell her to use magic to get her baking done. In the next story, Hilda zaps Ambrose, telling him to get out of that fridge. I'm glad it was him and not Harvey for once. It's a change of pace that's keeping up the trend that Harvey's not around. It's almost like Sabrina broke up with him a while ago. She keeps zapping him and he runs out of the house, saying that he can't help forgetting. She hypocritically says, "And you call yourself a relative?" And Ambrose reveals, oh, that Hilda's mad that he forgot her birthday. So every time he tries to relax, she zaps him, and he can't even get anything to eat. At least there's an explanation for her behavior. Sabrina wants to talk to her and calm her down, and because she foolishly brought Ambrose into the house with her, she tries to zap him. This is awesome, actually. Though it's visually boring that she only sends electricity at him and never varies it up. But she still looks badass, like she'd be great in an RPG. And it's nice of her to intentionally miss him sometimes because she punished him enough and doesn't want to upset Sabrina. No way she would ever actually miss. The magic has to go where she wants. Sabrina says that he wants to make it up to her. And Hilda says, "That creep! I never forgot his birthday." Really? That'd be surprisingly sweet of her. And nobody contradicts her. So, wow. I should have expected that Hilda would have such an unexpected soft side when it comes up so often, because she's one of the main characters. But it's hard to blame me when she looks like a stereotypical witch and acts like it. Sabrina says they'd better leave as Hilda foolishly keeps throwing energy at him instead of suggesting how he can make it up to her. Sabrina says that the only way he could get a woman that mad to soften up is to buy her a nice expensive present. He asks, like what? Good question. Instead, the story ends, and we see that all the windows were broken, but Hilda would just fix them immediately with magic. I want to see how the story ends. I want to see what gifts she'll get, but nope. We don't get to see the makeup. Sometimes these stories are too short. In the comedy page, Hilda makes a wish on a wishbone, and she wishes that Robert Redford, who I could have sworn was mentioned twice in this comic before under multiple pseudonyms, would become hers. What's with all these references to this guy? By some crazy coincidence, that was Zelda's wish too. I guess that's why it doesn't warp to them. The two witches cancelled each other out. I guess they watch similar things on TV. I guess the soap opera that Hilda cried to is the only TV show that she watches that she doesn't make up herself. The story ends with him saying that he feels like he's being pulled apart. And I giggled at imagining the baffled reactions they'd all have if they saw him actually get teleported away. In the next story, Hilda says that if she and Zelda are going to go to that bingo game, they better take their umbrellas. Hilda says that's her umbrella, and Zelda says it's hers and she remembers putting it there. Hilda will take any excuse to bicker with someone. She could just zap up her umbrella. Zelda says she has no idea where hers is and insists it's actually her umbrella. Do both of their umbrellas look the same? Why didn't they anticipate this would happen? Why didn't Zelda simply zap up Hilda's umbrella for her instead of them grabbing the umbrella? Even Sabrina, the dumb blonde, asked them why they won't zap up another umbrella. This kind of argument would make more sense if these two were children, but they've been alive for over 200 years. They argue over who would zap up the umbrella. As I couldn't help but smile since a page ago, over how silly they're being. For once they're acting like actual sisters with a sibling rivalry. Hilda makes a pie fall on Zelda and she does the same thing. They merely zap each other as Sabrina doesn't get involved in the fight and just finds another umbrella for them upstairs. Surprisingly, the two of them admit that it was a childish, dumb, and silly argument, with Hilda saying she's sorry. Zelda puts her hands on her shoulders and says she appreciates her saying that because it means a lot to her. I like that they make up so easily. It makes sense that they'd have a bit of a good dynamic, because otherwise, how could they stand living together? I'm guessing they'll start fighting again right away for the punchline. There was a surprise, and that stopped raining, so they didn't need umbrellas anyways. I guess they're going to walk to a mortal bingo game, but I thought only people stuck in retirement homes had access to bingo games back then. How did they even meet anyone who played it? The first story, about Sabrina surprisingly getting her aunts to pretend to be normal people for a day to avoid embarrassing Sabrina in front of a student, introduces Roger, a serious guy who turns out to be a witch, but he'll be wasted as a character from never appearing again, even though he's not problematic like Harvey. Go figure, the writers would find him boring as a result. He never got to cast any spells in the story, implying that he's not as reckless with them. It's good that it's established that he's new, to explain why he only came up now. But the story shouldn't have ended there. It should have continued on and showed us why he never shows up again. I can imagine Sabrina just can't get rid of her clinging attachment to Harvey and stop dating him, and eliminating his other options. And Roger wouldn't like that. Maybe he'd lecture her about using her powers too recklessly. Maybe the reason he had no friends was that he was staying distant from the mortals so they wouldn't figure out his secret, which is more cautious than Sabrina. But I haven't seen them argue, unlike Sonic and Sally. The second story is about Sabrina trying to get Hilda to get her ingredients for baking from the supermarket because she's covered in flour and too lazy to clean herself up with magic in a second. And because Hilda's unmotivated, thinking she should just zap the ingredients up, Sabrina has to zap up a bachelor to get her to go to the market out of infatuation. So that was refreshing. The third story is about Hilda hating Ambrose for once. And it turns out it's because he forgot her birthday, while she never forgot his. That claim of hers doesn't really have any impact since we've never seen her give a birthday present to him. And I wouldn't expect that of her. So she zaps him every time she sees him. Too bad the story doesn't end with him making it up to her. We'll never know what present she got. The final story is about Hilda and Zelda arguing over an umbrella because their umbrellas stupidly look the same. So I don't see how Hilda even thought Zelda had hers. Why would they care when they could just zap up new umbrellas? Eventually, Sabrina comes to the rescue, and fortunately they both admit their fight was childish and make up with no catch at the end. That was kind of exciting. That's probably how they were as kids. A story about that would have been more interesting. Since when do they go to bingo?